Steve, and then back to Shayne, and then the next question Rich will take first, and we'll keep that. Each candidate has 2 minutes to answer. I know it's not a lot of time, but so you get a chance to be brief today. So today, this first question comes from one of our audience. Today, all 4 of you are addressing the business community. What will you do in detail to increase business and employment in Kingston? So that's Ron Polacco first. Ron.
Hello everyone, I guess in my 2 minutes, boom, it goes in click in 2 minutes. I think the way to recover the city and set us back into the right direction and build economic development here in the city is by making it safe first. I think there's a critical issue. No one is going to move here, as I said earlier, and bring their business, their kids, send them to school on Broadway with gangs and drugs like that. That has to be done first. That has to be the first part of this. This, it's not going to happen overnight. Can't expect it, immediately. But there are things we can do. We can control spending. That is an effort to, to lower our spending, which will increase the income, for people. And like I said, the first thing that has to be done is the city has to be made safe first. Steve mentioned thinking outside the box. There's different options for that. Obviously, I'm open to all different plans. Let's look at them, see what we have. Are we utilizing all the advantages we have? Tourism. Are we utilizing all the advantages we have here? Are we utilizing tourism? Are we utilizing tech? What about using Deep Stadium in a different way? What about perhaps a outdoor concert arena from Deep Stadium? Different ideas that could be used. To explore them all openly. Everything is available. We have to move forward. Thank you.
I'm pleased to see that the first question largely talked about what I spoke about in my opening statement, so I feel at least I hit the mark. I want to take time in this question, since I largely addressed this in my opening remarks, to draw a very stark difference between myself, Mr. Gallo, and Mr. Polacco. I don't know your position, Mr. Ladin, so I can't necessarily include you in this. You may have seen there was a newspaper that was put up by the Chamber which had some comments, and Mr. Gallo very eloquently stated there that he essentially agrees with Mr. Polacco that you need to deal with the issues such as crime and so forth before you deal with economic development. The theory is that if you improve quality of life, you will improve the local economy. That's true. However, I think that that position fails to see the reverse of that equation. If you help local development, you are by definition helping quality of life. When you walk around, you see a lot of houses that are in need of repair. There's a small minority of those that are owned by people who just don't care. Most of them aren't able to do it right now because they're out of work, they're not getting the extra overtime they used to get, or their business isn't making the type of money that it used to. You improve the local economy, they have the resources then to invest. So you focus on the local economy, you are also helping quality of life. You need to have a plan that addresses it from both equations, both sides of the equation, I should say. And the things I was talking about before, of making the necessary spending changes, and I've put a lot of them out in the paper over the last few months of different things that I'm going to do. And the fact of the matter is, if you can improve both sides of the equation, you are improving them twofold. So the types of changes I talked about in my opening remarks will improve the local economy, but don't put it on the back burner to deal with quality of life. They're equally important, and if you help both, then you'll get the double improvement that we really need. Thank you.
I think everyone is aware that it's not only Kingston where there are no jobs, no opportunities, it's everywhere in this country. So Kingston really has to position itself in a position where, well, we're in competition with everyone else, everywhere else. Kingston has some wonderful, unique assets. We are right near the Catskill Mountains, the Shawanega Cliffs. We're on the Hudson River. It's an area where people, if they don't know about it, they should. It's a great place to live. And I think what we should really do is focus on Kingston's unique assets. It's really an unbelievably beautiful city, rich in history, with a large cadre of artists and educated, overeducated people, really. So on that basis, I think that we can attract new residents and bring new businesses to Kingston.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Richard. You had it half right. I would agree that, in fact, okay, we have to address those quality of life issues that affect businesses, okay, in Kingston. But I would also state the following. We need to have our comprehensive plan, which will assist with economic development. We need to have a blueprint for investment. We need to have that comprehensive plan address the zoning inconsistencies. We need to have that comprehensive plan foster and facilitate federal and state grant money. We had the waterfront revitalization plan for the waterfront, which has resulted in a lot of money, okay, to develop the waterfront. We need to actually tap into the Chamber of Commerce and the business community, okay, to get their advice, their recommendation as to what we can do to be more business friendly and to encourage development in Kingston. We need also to continue the projects that were started under the current administration. We have the Beale Street widening downtown, which will connect to the promenade. We need to also, okay, address, okay, the sewage treatment plant. We're doing the exterior over. Essentially, we need to issue proposals for King's Inn, the parking garage, as well as the NOAA Hotel. We need to address the possible over-assessment, homestead and non-homestead, because it has a direct correlation to lower school and county taxes. We need to essentially coordinate and hold accountable those city and county economic development agencies, be it the county IDA, the UCDC, as well as the Office of Economic Development for Kingston and the Kingston Loan Development Corporation, and connect to the Governor's Regional Economic Development Councils that have been proposed recently. I think by addressing quality of life, fostering a climate that will attract business, and taking into account all the other ingredients for economic development, we'll have a plan to foster a public-private partnership to move Kingston forward.
Thank you all. There are actually a couple of similar questions to our next one. It was just mentioned by our last candidate, and it is, will you lead to eliminate the homestead, non-homestead imbalance in the city? So we'll start with Rich on this one.
Yes. Guys are too tall. Yeah, as I said in my opening remarks, all of us are going to be talking about eliminating homestead versus non-homestead. But if anybody up here thinks that you're going to make it happen in 1 year, you're delusional. It took 15 to 20 years to get into this mess, and it's going to take time. There was an attempt made by Mayor Cahill to deal with it in large part, and what happened? The citizens, they rose up and they said, wait a minute, our taxes are going up 10 to 12%. One of the candidates who's running for alderman at large held a tax rally in City Hall on the night of the vote, and the council reversed action. You try to do it all at once, and the council will not have the political will to pass it. They simply won't. That's the reality. What you need to do is do it over a period of years. You need to find ways to cut spending so that you can use that. I already talked about eliminating the Economic Development Office. Let me tell you something where I can save some money in another department that you can use towards that. In the Department of Public Works. Department of Public Works has 2 assistant superintendents. One is largely in charge of trash pickup, not exclusively, but largely. The other is largely in charge of the sewer treatment plant, okay? You can eliminate the 2 of them because you have a trash foreman that already does the trash pickups in charge of that. You have 2, and I always get my tongue tied on this one, 2 senior sewer plant operators who do that job in charge of the sewer. It's unnecessary. If you eliminate those 2 jobs, you're going to be saving between $150,000 and $175,000, depending how the contractual negotiations go. Good luck with that, Mr. Mayor. And you still will not lose any efficiency. You could actually hire 1 or 2 laborers back and still have money left over. These are the types of things that you have to do to find the money necessary to deal with the homestead versus non-homestead gradually over time, 2 or 3% a year. I know it's not the big sweeping change you'd like, but political realities are you will not get it done in 1 year. Mayor Cahill tried, and he'll tell you it didn't work because the council didn't have the political will. And there's one thing that will not change, and that's the lack of political will in the Common Council.
Equalizing the homestead and commercial tax rate has been something I've been hearing quite frequently as I walk the streets. I also agree with with Rich that it can't be done immediately. It's got to be phased in. Probably, it seems to me it would take at least 10 years, maybe doing 10% a year reduction of the, or trying to equalize it. You can't really raise the residential tax rates. We're already too high with that. So it's only a matter of reducing the commercial rates. But of course, then you're losing tax revenue. So the idea is that as you try to, and I say try to gradually reduce the commercial tax rate, you have to make up that income somewhere else. And hopefully, under the new mayoral administration, you will begin attracting new businesses, new residents to Kingston. Perhaps the real estate values begin going up. And in that case, you can begin to lower the commercial rate. Aside from that, you know, and also you do have to have some sort of mechanism so that if you do not increase the overall tax base, you will not be able to lower that commercial rate. So it's a very tricky problem. I'm not sure that it can be accomplished even in 10 years, but who knows? We may come across an era of great prosperity here in Kingston. Thank you very much.
The tax assessed value of property in the city of Kingston is over $1.5 billion. On January 1, what I would pledge is to direct the assessor and to form a commission with business and residents, okay, to determine and review whether or not we have been overassessed. Since the reval in 2008, I believe, the real estate market has declined between 10 and 25%. Our tax assessed value, meanwhile, has only increased 1%. We do potentially have a situation where we are overassessed, but as stated by the other individuals running, we cannot do it all at once. Last year we had 110 homes in foreclosure. We took 18 to 20 in rent proceedings. This year, it's my understanding, on January 6th of 2012 actually, there are potentially 56 parcels to be foreclosed upon in a rent proceeding. So we need fair assessments, and I pledge to undertake same. Essentially, over the last years, we've had an attempt with the current administration and the council to incrementally adjust the base proportionate rate between homestead and non-homestead. But again, we can't do it immediately for the reasons stated. The key is we need to build our rateable, and we need to foster economic development. We need to continue with the project, for instance, at ABR. And I know the mayor recently, addressed some of the issues that were potentially causing a stumble block with the DEC, which he deserves credit for that. We need to build the rateable. We need to take a look at whether the assessments are fair, but we can't make the shift for those reasons immediately.
Hello? The tax shift question. You knew that was going to come up here, right? The tax shift question. Businesses are overtaxed, but so are the homeowners. So is the answer to shift the burden to the homeowners? I don't think so. At none of these difficult, trying times do you want to shift taxes onto the homeowners. It's just too much at this time to do. That's the difficult part of this. This cannot happen overnight. We have to do something for the business, but you can't just shift the taxes to the homeowner. It has to be a gradual process where you rebuild the economy, cut the spending, we talked about, create more economy, more tax base, control the tax rate, cut spending, and then have it build over a gradual period of time, not boom, just shift it over to the homeowners. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Steve on this next question, and everyone has heard, I think, what's happening with the Kingston. So that's the question on the docket this morning. Do you have a proposal for the Kingston property? If you do, please tell us what it is. And we'll start with Steve, Shayne, Ron, and Rich.
About a month ago, this group, Safe Harbors, came and they made a proposal to convert the King's Inn or build a new structure there that would house, let's call it subsidized housing, an art gallery, other facilities. it met with quite a bit of opposition, so much so that the proposal was withdrawn. I was very curious about it, and so I did go down to Newburgh, and I was given a tour of their facility in Newburgh. And I have to tell you that I thought it was unbelievable. It was fabulous. It was fabulous. I couldn't see why anybody would not want to have such a facility in their city. So I really would back such a proposal. Recently, the Queen's Galley has made a similar, well, not really a similar proposal. They've wanted to do a training center for the culinary arts there, as well as some other things. Personally, I admire what the Queen's Galley does, but I'm not sure that they have the resource to undertake a $20 or $30 or even $40 million project on that site. I would tell them to go down to Newburgh and speak with the people at Safe Harbors. Perhaps there's a collaboration there. So that's what I would propose. Welcome an organization like Safe Harbors to come in and do that project. For all of you who criticize it without seeing it, please go to Newburgh and have a look. You will be unbelievably impressed by what they have done there.
When I announced in March at the King's Inn, I did it for more than symbolic reasons. I understood and recognized that that particular site was more than a metaphor, that it was necessary to be developed for purposes of stimulating interest and development in the Midtown corridor. I had recommended, and the mayor was proceeding with exactly what I had stated at my announcement, okay, for my campaign, to demolish the building, make it shovel ready, so that we can ascertain its commercial value. Once we know its value, we could issue out a proposal and get interest in prospective economic development. As I stated earlier, we have to build our rateable. We right now have about $500,000 plus invested in that property. Between the asbestos abatement and between over $300,000 or thereabouts that we need to recoup in the taxes that weren't paid by the prior owner. So I think when you put that in perspective and look at the site and take into account the necessity of ascertaining its value and issuing a proposal, I have spoken to two developers. There was one developer, believe it or not, who was interested in putting in a hotel conference center along with some kind of community arts center and mixed retail with parking, believe it or not. I'd actually spoken to another developer who was interested in potentially some form of housing, but not subsidized low-income housing. Suffice to say, both developers will not invest a penny in Kingston or in that site until we get it shovel ready and until we assure that we're addressing the quality of life issues along the Midtown corridor, be it with public safety, as well as the code enforcement and holding accountable the social service agencies who provide services to those in need in that part of our city.
King's Inn is a critical location in our city. We're trying to rebuild the Broadway corridor. As discussed earlier, that is a key element to return the city back to its economic recovery. We have to make that a viable location. People want to come there. They come down Broadway off the thruway. Oh, it's a nice little hometown. They're rebuilding. It looks great. So it's very important, critical what goes in there for the overall appearance of our city and the rebuilding of the city. So I'm open-minded to all ideas. The idea that Steve was mentioning that quickly rejecting something, that's not the proper way to govern. Give me all the facts, the pros, the cons, any proposal, and then I'll decide yes or no to that. I mean, to just simply say no because it's politically, right move because people are against something, and you say, oh, yes, no, I'll vote no too quick. Get all the facts first, know what's going on before you make a decision. So certainly open to anything that's going to come in there. Let's hear the facts before we make any type of decision. That is a critical part. I will say a couple things quickly. 1 minute, okay. You don't want to put something in there that comes off the tax rolls. They want to do a pilot program that's going to have to be the same rate they would have paid the tax rate. That's a critical element. We can also not put something in there that's going to end up being the same thing we had before, back in the same situation. So anything that even has that kind of potential, we'll be very careful about. Thank you.
What I had something negative to say about was the idea of low-income housing at the King's Inn. I will under no circumstances support more low-income housing at the King's Inn, or frankly anywhere else in the city of Kingston. As far as I'm concerned, we have more than enough, and I will not support any more of that in the city of Kingston. As far as what I would like to see at the King's Inn, if we could find the resources to do it, and it would take a lot of legwork, but I think the ideal thing for that location, if we could afford it, would be to build a police substation in that area. I think a strong police presence, a substation in that area would go a long way towards battling the biggest issue that faces Midtown, which is the issue of crime. Midtown has been struggling. We've seen the biggest prosecution in 25 or 30 years was because of an execution of a witness in Midtown Kingston. If that doesn't tell us that the biggest issue in Midtown is crime, nothing will. And I've said this actually on numerous occasions, and I'm going to say it again tonight. I was going to say this for my closing remarks, but I'll take my final 30 seconds to say it now. I'm ultimately hoping that you'll vote for me, but regardless of whether you do, there are things in life that are more important. And one of the things that's more important than electing me or any of the fine gentlemen at this table, as far as I'm concerned, is re-electing Holly Carnwright to the District Attorney's Office. I feel very strongly about that because I think he's doing a tremendous job, and you can like me, reject me, love me, hate me, that's all well and good. But to me, it's more important you re-elect him because we need to fight crime in the city, and he's doing it.
Shayne will go first with this answer to this question. Do you have a plan to combat the influx of gang crime in Kingston? Okay.
As I stated earlier, the county executive has actually recommended hiring of an assistant district attorney who will specifically be responsible for the prosecution of gang and drug-related offenses. The plan I had proposed, it was a response to the youth safety issue a couple of months ago that occurred over in the South Clinton area of Kingston, where we had a roving gang of 9 to 15-year-olds who was being led by a 9-year-old who started his first gang at the age of 7, believe it or not, called the Rubber Bands. Nonetheless, this group of individuals took it upon themselves to terrorize the neighborhood, resulting in a 17-year-old lad being shot repeatedly with a pellet gun. What we need to do is not only use the district attorney to that end to prosecute offenses, but we need to coordinate with the city police department and county agencies an effort to have the social service agencies, probation, etc., okay, who provide services for these children and their parents more accountable. What we need to do is put a youth officer back and not use a detective out of rotation for that effort part-time. We have to have a presence with that youth officer to establish, okay, the community for community policing. So I think that we not only take into account prosecution and coordinating these resources, but we also take into account the recreational opportunities and other activities that the children could be involved in, particularly with respect to the Hodge Center. So in a nutshell, it's not only about law enforcement, but it's also taking into account the environment that these children are coming from, okay, and recognizing that they are receiving these services and their parents have to be held accountable for their inappropriate behavior. I've also worked with Shayne Gallo, who's running in the 5th Ward. She's proposed what's called the Parental Accountability Act, which in effect, okay, will hold those parents accountable for the inappropriate conduct of their children, resulting in potentially a fine and or community service. So I think it's a comprehensive approach to deal with this issue.
I've already made several comments on this topic, so this is obviously very important to me. I live on a real street. I live on a real street, so I'm dealing with these gangs, drug problems in my daily life. I've had the word blood spray painted on my sidewalk, they throw rocks in my window. So this is certainly a critical issue to me. I'll work closely with Holly Carnwright, once a mayor from the mayor again, to rid the gangs. Holly's done a great job so far, bond with him with that, work together. Having a special assistant attorney is a fantastic idea, just to focus on that. So they can do that. This is the critical issue. It's first the gang members and the drug dealers we have here. We gotta go after them, be aggressive, put the police on foot, empower them to go after them, use the department heads, the building department and the police department, go after these people, absentee landlords, rectify the situation. That is the first step. But you also have to provide programs and support the programs that are for the youth. We don't want our youth turning into the next wave of drug dealers. As we replace these ones, we don't want the next wave of 13, 14-year-olds to take their place. So Youth Build and the Boys and Girls Club, you know, those different programs are very good for that. Big Brothers, Big Sisters, all that. So that is critical. And this has to happen first if we're going to turn the city around. Thank you.
Of the candidates who are up here today, being a former prosecutor, I am the only one who can honestly say that I've taken criminals off the street. There are people who still call state prison their home because of the work that I did. And back when I was an alderman, the 2 years that I gave my State of the City address, I made numerous proposals. One of them, which I made in 2005, was a variation of it was picked up by somebody else who was able to make it a reality. And that was I had called for the creation of the Drug and Gang Violence Task Force. And our sheriff took a variation of that idea, and it's now called Urgent, and it's been very successful. And I congratulate him on getting that done. I also called for a crime commission. I wasn't able to get that put into place. It was ruled out of order on the council floor. Nevertheless, I've also proposed previously what I've called a street crime attack team. It's very similar to what we used to have, the neighborhood stabilization units, which gets more police officers on the street. The one thing that I would urge, though, whomever of the four of us gets into office, I would urge to keep in mind that it is important to realize, regardless of how much experience you may have in crime, even the most experienced in fighting crime, which is myself, you cannot put yourself in place of the police department. You have to know when to step back and to allow the true experts to do their job. You can't be a police commissioner, you have to be mayor. But the other thing I would point out, and this is something that I think Shayne touched on this, two things. One, his ideas of the Youth Crime Commission is a good one. And I will implement it if I am elected mayor. Just because he's an opponent doesn't mean I'm going to reject his ideas out of hand. He has a good idea there, and I think it should be implemented. The other thing to keep in mind is, and Shayne touched on this too, the gangs are not recruiting from high school. They are recruiting from middle school. That is frightening. Frightening to think about it, that your 8 or 9-year-old is being actively recruited by these gangs. And some of the initiations that they do are barbaric. They have one, I know, let me finish real quick. One of the ones the gangs will do is they send these kids out, and the way they get initiated is they find the prettiest woman they can, and they have to slash her face with a razor. There's another gang, you have to kill somebody to become a member. These are barbaric criminal organizations, and they must be stopped by any means necessary. I've seen what they've done firsthand. I've prosecuted them. I hope none of you ever have to see it, because it is absolutely barbaric.
Public safety is a very important issue. Personally, I walk the streets of Kingston day and night, all year long. Many of you have seen me. I feel very safe. However, I agree there is a problem. Among the ways to solve that problem, I think, is to get a squad of people, perhaps even some of these young people, bring street sweepers back to the city of Kingston. If we give street sweepers a cell phone, have them in every neighborhood, they can be there, they could be a contact for the police if they see anything going on. They can also assist some of our senior citizens if they have a problem clearing the snow off of their sidewalk. And guess what? This kind of a program will not cost the city anything. There are many programs out there where the underemployed can be hired to do such a program. Many cities in Europe still employ street sweepers. It would be great if there was a presence of a street sweeper who would know all the residents in that particular area where they work. Think about it. I think this would be a great step, and it would make people feel so much safer. Among some of the other things that the other candidates proposed, well, Picasso, who you all know is one of the great artists of the world, said, "Good artists borrow, great artists steal." And that's what I plan on doing, stealing the best ideas from everyone.
To give you a final summation of their views and their opinions and their visions for the city, each candidate now will have a final 2 minutes to talk about themselves for you, respective voters, and we'll start in reverse order from our opening statements. So Steve Ladin.